Get 5 coffins ready.
Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome to my guide for Tsukuyomi. Tsukuyomi is an assassin who focuses on extremely high and easy to hit ability damage, with a heaping spoonful of CC on top. His exceptional range and damage make him a solid choice as both a jungler or as a solo laner, hence most of his builds. Tsukuyomi typically goes for extremely high power and penetration in his builds, at times foregoing any defense in his builds because of his insanely high power scaling. That said, considering the dive bomb nature of the character, if hybrid items are strong, he typically tries to incorporate those as well. Relics wise, well, Tsukuyomi is actually one of the few assassins who can survive just fine without blink, and can actually go beads and ages just fine. However, starting blink and going into beads later is just fine too. That being said though, Tsukuyomi likes having the aforementioned hybrid items and defensive relics because he is easily one of the most do or die assassins in SMITE. While he has strong poke, he needs to be in the enemy's face if he ever hopes to finish them off. Speaking of being in the enemy's face, let's talk about Tsukuyomi's passive. When Tsukuyomi basic attacks, he basic attacks with his left blade, named Shingetsu, then his right blade, Mangetsu. He then attacks with his left blade again, then the right, and so on. Once a blade has struck an enemy, whether a god or a minion, that blade becomes active for 5 seconds, and subsequent basic attacks with them will both refresh the duration and either heal or grant mana to Tsukuyomi depending on which blade is the one currently attacking. The left blade Shingetsu grants the mana as well as cleaving while active, while the right blade Mangetsu grants the health. It's a lot of words to explain something very simple. Basic attack twice successfully, and Tsuku will gain a health and mana heal which scales off his physical power via subsequent basic attacks. While early game it certainly won't be the deciding factor in a trade, it can still offer Tsukuyomi plenty of extra sustain, especially when laning as a solo laner. Additionally, if you for some reason miss the first basic attack in your chain, but hit the second, your right blade will still be activated and the left blade deactivated. One way to keep his blade activated prior to engaging on an enemy god is his first ability. Tsukuyomi fires a damaging shadow shuriken which passes through minions and stops on walls and gods. Also, the shuriken sticks into the enemy god for 3 seconds, and Tsukuyomi can retrieve the shuriken by getting within melee range of the god. Once retrieved, this ability's cooldown is reduced by a massive 4 seconds. After this ability fires, regardless of whether or not it hits anything, Tsukuyomi is able to fire projectile form of his left blade, this projectile version being treated as a basic attack and stopping on the first enemy or wall hit. If it hits an enemy god, Tsukuyomi steals 25% of the hit enemy god's move speed, meaning they are slowed for 25% and Tsukuyomi gains the lost movement speed. Additionally, since this is a basic attack, it will activate his left blade's passive. Much like his passive, it's a lot of words for a simple ability. It's an awesome ability for poke, especially if the initial and basic attack portion of the ability hits. It's also fantastic for wave clearing in the solo lane, or in the jungle, chasing down enemies with the huge movement speed steal in this ability, as well as the built-in cooldown reduction allowing for great sustained chase down potential. Speaking of chase down, let's talk about Tsukuyomi's third ability. Tsukuyomi lays down a cone area of caltrops on the ground which slow and damage enemies as they try to walk through it. It's pretty disgusting crowd and area control, especially once leveled up. The damage, when the ability is placed well, is nothing to scoff at. But it also sets Tsukuyomi up for his projectile form of his right blade, which is thinner than his left blade's projectile form, but should still be easy to hit given his third ability's disgustingly high slow. And of course, this sets you up perfectly for your first ability for slows on top of slows, while naturally increasing your own movement speed with your first ability. Some pretty disgusting poke there, but what to do once you close the gap? That's where Tsukuyomi's second ability comes into play. Tsukuyomi gains movement speed and swings his Kusarigama around twice, creating cone AoEs to his left and to his right, each cone damaging and disarming any enemy's hit. He then throws his Kusarigama forward to create a final small rectangle AoE in front of him, which deals heavy damage and stuns any enemy's hit. In a trade, this ability is a nightmare for the opponent, an ultra high damaging ability which disarms, leaving only their abilities to try and trade, and then a stun on top, giving Tsukuyomi multiple ability and basic attacks for free. This is up there as one of the highest damaging non-ultimate physical abilities in the game, but as I'm sure you can already tell, comes with its fair share of downsides. Firstly, a light gust of wind will stop Tsukuyomi dead in his tracks. Roots, knockups, stuns, and even a good slow will prevent Tsukuyomi from getting full effectiveness out of it. Secondly, there's no guarantee that the final swing will actually connect. Yes, you yourself can flick it at the last moment, but if the enemy has a fair bit of Tsukuyomi experience, they're going to know the timing and will avoid it, whether it's with a CC immune ultimate, a movement ability, or even something like a beats. That's when your ultimate can come in clutch. Tsukuyomi becomes CC immune and gains 20% damage reduction and fires 4 extremely long range beams of Moonlight. These beams travel through walls but do not affect minions or jungle monsters. When they hit an enemy god, the god is damaged and marked. Tsukuyomi can only damage and mark up to 3 gods. After Tsukuyomi fires his 4 projectiles, he teleports to and damages any marked targets, in the order that they were originally hit. And finally, Tsukuyomi will end the ability facing the enemy he hit with the final projectile. Well, if his second ability is one of the hardest hitting physical abilities, here is the actual hardest hitting physical ability. Well, almost. But seriously, this ability is no joke damage-wise. It can easily 100-0 a squishy by itself when it hits, and if you're just going even with the squishy, if you hit the full ability, you'll still make most, if not all, of their life bar disappear. Not to mention that Tsukuyomi maintains that CC immunity and damage reduction the entire time. So, catch Tsukuyomi in a bind and he'll whip out his ultimate and make himself immune for at least 3 seconds if not more, if he's able to hit multiple gods, becoming essentially untouchable during the teleportation portion of this ability, which, yes, will follow enemies that are even in the air. I've lost track of the amount of times me or another Tsukuyomi has completely turned getting caught in the jungle by the enemy team on his head by simply ulting whoever jumps on them to buy themselves and their team time. Or, funnier still, ulting a straggling enemy god as a free ticket out of a bad situation. But most of all, what this ability is good for is getting Tsukuyomi in there. The ability being able to trunk so hard is great, but most of all, it's its ability to follow anybody and everybody in order for Tsukuyomi to get in and start face rolling with his 3 core abilities. This is, however, when the downsides of this ability begin to rear their heads. Given how telegraphed this move is, the enemy team is going to see exactly who your target is and, most importantly, are going to know where you'll end up once the ultimate ends. This means that not only can they position themselves to peel you off their backline as soon as the ultimate ends, but they can also reverse body block the ultimate, making you end up smack dab in front of a frontliner instead of your intended target. This is of course where things like Magi's and beads come in handy, but this is also where you really have to start using your brain as Tsukuyomi. While using your core kit to chase down and force out movement abilities, then using your ultimate to catch enemies works well early and mid game. Late game you really need to have a good Tsukuyomi ult to be effective. You not only have to deal a large amount of damage with the ultimate, but have the decision making skills to ensure you won't get your ankles broke as soon as the ultimate ends, or god forbid have the ability immune. Oh, right. If the enemy uses a damage immunity like a Changatu or more commonly an Aegis, the target will not only not be damaged, but will also not be marked. Plus, Tsukuyomi's projectile burst lasts about 1.5 seconds, and surprise surprise, that's the current duration of Aegis. So, the person you're ulting on can simply Aegis just as the first projectile comes out and immune the entire thing, or only allow one projectile to hit them, so that you dash towards them having dealt almost no damage, where they will then have a massive advantage in the fight. And that's the Achilles heel of this ability. Once you've marked somebody, you're going in. That means that if you judge the situation well, it's a cakewalk to slap your forehead on your keyboard and get a clean kill, and probably get out of the fight too. And if you've judged it poorly, well, good luck. Here's a couple of combos with Tsukuyomi. For leveling, you want to start with your 1 at level 1, then get your 2 at level 2, and at level 3 get your 3. But if you want to get your 3 at level 2, that's totally fine as well. From there you want to level your 1, then your 2, then your 3. And of course, level up that crazy ultimate whenever you can. So, Tsukuyomi. Pretty easy mechanically, but with a lot of subtle intricacies that can make or break your usage of him. Judging when your second ability and ultimate can't be punished, utilizing your movement speed on your 1 and your 2, there's a lot of little things about Tsukuyomi that may not seem pivotal, but can mean the difference between winning and losing traits if you don't keep them in mind. Frankly, Tsukuyomi is extremely easy against low-level opponents, or just opponents that don't know his moveset very well. Kinda reminds me of someone else I know. But the better the opponent is, and especially the better they know Tsukuyomi, the more trouble you're going to have just trying to roll your face across your keyboard and get an easy win with him. And frankly, into some compositions, you're just going to have to accept that you need to buy Magi's or beads as soon as your ult ends, because there's really no way around having a heavy CC team not just gather around where they know you're going to land in your ultimate and smack you down before you can even do anything, hence the popularity of beads and Aegis on him. That said though, get a good start early and stay even or ahead, and most squishies can only hope to survive the onslaught of insane damage and chase down. That's all I have on Tsukuyomi for you today. Thanks for watching.